So from now on, anytime you think, hear, or see the words, the colors, the symbol, or smell, the same feeling of confidence returns.
Welcome to the Spohn Trained Personal Development Podcast. Here's your host, Nicholas Spohn.
There is nothing as transformative as live in-person events. So if you're ready to go deeper, I mean way deeper, into programming your subconscious, mastering hypnotic influence, and retraining your nervous system, join me at my upcoming 4-day event, Resonance. If you want to feel more confident, understand how to use language to create your reality, gain emotional mastery, or just connect with like-minded people, you will love this event. To get on the waitlist for Resonance or learn about other transformational events, go to spohntrained.com/events. To change your vibe and change your life, that's spohntrained.com/events. All right, welcome to another episode. I have an amazing guest today. And before I get into it, I kind of just want to explain my pathway into understanding hypnosis and mindset was a lot through my athletics. And I didn't learn how to do that, how to, build my mindset, my confidence, and be a peak performer really until after my competitive days. And, I was a decent competitor, but I could have been so much better. And when I was coaching wrestling, I started to learn this stuff. I read psychocybernetics, started using mental rehearsal with my athletes, had some success. And so today's topic, we're going to get into sports psychology with an expert and someone who's really built a reputation in the hypnosis world. My guest today is Caryn Bird. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Nicholas.
So it was so funny how we met. Sandra and I were out in Sedona preparing for our event, and we were on a hike and watching the sunset at this kind of common location. And we ran into you, and Sandra knew you, of course. So that was our meeting point. And then I followed you on some social media and seen your reputation around working with athletes. And I was like, I really wanted to have this conversation. So thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. I'm super excited.
How did you get into hypnosis and specifically, peak performance or sports performance?
I got into hypnosis. I have a background in psychology. And with our third child, I practiced hypnobirthing, or I used hypnobirthing, and it worked amazing. And then the OB said, if you want to teach it, I will endorse you in my office because the hospital is talking about your amazing birth.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And then at that point I was like, okay. And I, being trained in psychology, there's just a little blip that we learn about hypnosis, and it's not a modality that a lot of psychologists use. And so I didn't know a whole lot about it, but then I decided to become a practitioner in hypnobirthing, which is the Marie Mongan method. Mm-hmm. And I taught that for about a year and a half, and then decided that there really was something to the power of the mind. And part of that was that I had seen then dozens and dozens of women be able to have natural, easy births, like literally not moving, right? Just letting our body work the way it's supposed to and staying in what we as hypnotists call the trance state, but really just the calm, relaxed state.
Yes.
So then I decided to become certified as a hypnotist. And I had, my husband was at the time a collegiate wrestler a few years prior, and then a wrestling coach. And I think, my sons were just in youth wrestling then. So, but we're starting to really get into the mindset training. And of course, I was a general hypnotist, just wanted to see everybody for everything for quite a few years. And then like this bell rang in my head, and I was like, I have a complete program for athletes. I know what it's like to be an elite athlete. I see the mental toughness it takes. And why am I not focusing on helping athletes build the confidence to get their peak performance for performance enhancement, right? So that's kind of how my journey went. And then part-time for a while, and then everything exploded. And then I wrote the Attitude of a Champion program, and now teach hypnotists and hypnotherapists worldwide on how to work with athletes for performance enhancement.
Yeah, it's an amazing niche. And to be honest, I thought about, getting into that specifically early on as well. And now I kind of focus more with entrepreneurs. But the sports background is, for me, I'm a wrestler from the Midwest as well. And in Iowa, and I wrestled high school in Ohio and college in Indiana. So I've been around the Midwest, and you're in Wisconsin. So we definitely have a lot of overlap there. And I've used a lot of these techniques, and we'll kind of get into some of the principles of those in a moment. But I was reading a book the other day, and it was basically describing our behaviors and actions are mostly just us carrying out post-hypnotic suggestions. Yeah. So our brain recognizes a pattern. We go into a kind of a trance. We lose our sense of time. We fulfill that action, whether it's, putting our mask on when we go into a store, getting out on the mat to wrestle, or going to give a speech. Most of those are just cues to go into a certain trained, learned state, or birthing even, right? So, you were talking about the people you worked with in birthing, they just go into that post-hypnotic suggestion. They go into that trance state and they deliver. And so I'm guessing that's kind of the foundation of what we do with athletes as well. So what are some of the principles to start to think about, to get that athlete into that peak performance mode, to be feeling confident, and to really perform at a high level?
Well, we all know how important visualizations are. And so one of the main things that I work with an athlete on in the first session is that we create the blueprints in our mind. And the way that I explain it so they understand is typically when you're driving somewhere and you go to a destination that you've been to many times, and in your head, in your conscious mind, you're thinking of all the things you need to do, and you forgot to feed the dog and what you're going to do when you get there. And you get to your destination and think to yourself, I don't remember driving here, or did I stop at that stoplight back there? And it's the blueprint, it's the map in the back of our mind and the subconscious that got us to our destination. And that's exactly what happens, not only in life, but even in the way that you perform, whether it's on the court or on the field or on the mat. It's the blueprint that we've created. And when we can switch out that blueprint to what does it look like in your perfect match or your perfect game, as opposed to replaying the negative, the last time you didn't do so well, which is what our critical mind has a tendency to do, right? The self-doubt. If we can create a new blueprint, a new map, then exactly what you just said, that is our destiny. Like, we've declared it, we've created that picture in our mind, and now it's going to play out for us.
Yeah. And so the subconscious has rehearsed that. It goes into that match and it goes, oh, I've been here. I know what you want me to do, because, you played that out so many times in your mind. And then the muscle memory, if you will, it's kind of automatic, and you can almost observe yourself in flow, wrestling, or competing in that performance state. So, I mean, if the only thing you get from this is the importance of mental rehearsal, like, this podcast would have been worth your time, right? Because I use this if I'm running a race, even if I'm not wanting to be super competitive, I'll visualize a time and I'll give that in my subconscious. I mean, I'm always mentally rehearsing. So, Caryn, what are some of the specifics, some of the specific ways we can enhance or supercharge our visualization exercises?
Well, we all know that it's a relaxed state. When the conscious mind is relaxed, the subconscious mind is more in the forefront. And that's about learning. It took me so many years to embrace this, even after I had been trained as a hypnotist, learning how to get into the meditative, hypnotic, relaxed state. And so I would say every athlete that I see, or even client in my office, I teach them self-hypnosis after they've learned what does it feel like to be in that state. Because most of us as human beings, as you know, we walk around in this beta state all the time. It's always like inner mean guy, inner mean girl, conscious mind, always thinking about what might happen. What if that happens? And so when we can get into the relaxed state, that's when we can create the very powerful blueprints and pictures of the future visualization. Because as we know, your subconscious, inner conscious can't tell the difference between present and future, or present and past. It lives as if it's happening right now. So getting into the relaxed state, visualizing exactly what that perfect game or that perfect match looks like and then bringing back, right, the zone, right, that peak performance state. So really solidifying, when is the last time that you felt amazing? And so, Nicholas, if I were to ask you, like, when is the last time that you, like, raised your hand and you were like, I'm awesome. Like I rock. So go ahead and tell me.
Oh, it was definitely in Sedona.
Okay.
And I was in total flow for sure.
And give me more. Like, where were you? What were you doing?
So I had a group of people in front of me and I could see the look on their faces that they got everything they wanted from the event. They were all super pumped. We had music going, we had lights going. I felt like my ideas were just flowing out of me. My body language is great. I was standing up tall. I was excited, but also relaxed at the same time. Big smile on my face.
Yeah. Awesome. So first of all, as you're describing it to me, and I see this with every athlete, as they're telling me that last time they were in that peak emotional state, there's always a smile on their face, right? And we all know that smiles release endorphins. It feels good. It loosens up our body. That's the way we want to perform. And as you were telling me about it, you saw that in your mind. You were creating that picture again, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what we work with athletes on is tell me the last time you were in flow, the last time you were in the zone. And then we get to bring back that peak emotional state. That's what it is to be in the zone. We get to bring back that peak emotional state by triggering it that every time you step on the mat or every time you step on the field or every time you go to make a basket, you can automatically bring back that feeling that you just described to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, you know, in a stressful or tight state or beta brainwaves, as you said as well, our brain doesn't want to learn, right? Like it's in a bit of survival mode and it's like, look, what we have in here is good. We're under stress. We're just going to execute our plan. When you are able to access that relaxed state, theta brainwave state, rehearse from there, like it's happening in the moment, right? Like you described, then the subconscious starts to say, oh, okay, we have a new program. We have a new target. We're building new neural pathways in this relaxed state. We're taking an emotion, a peak emotion from a past experience, and we're living it now with that future visualization. And then kind of like I described earlier, when I step on the mat to compete, that post-hypnotic cue fires and I'm back into that flow state that I've already rehearsed. Is that kind of how it works?
Exactly. You just reiterated perfect. Good
Awesome.
Mirroring.
So, I used to also take athletes through multiple situations. So like if they were losing, if they were winning, and to rehearse all the little ins and outs so they knew exactly how to respond and keep their composure in any situation, right?
Yes.
So what's the importance of keeping composure even though they're losing or even maybe if they've lost a match, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is so powerful. And when I first started offering services to athletes, I didn't address that often enough. And throughout my experience is you were always going to have uncontrollables. Like you cannot win every single match. You cannot be at 100% peak every time. Yet we want to instill that picture, but what do you do to bounce back? And that's mental toughness. That's resilience. And how do you prepare your athlete or your client or even your entrepreneur when they don't meet their goals, right? To have the mental toughness or the resilience to, instead of hanging on to that, to let it go, right? And what I tell my athletes, and I think this is so powerful, is we always set what I call stretchy but attainable goals. So a stretchy but attainable goal is a goal that is going to be hard to reach. You're going to work really, really hard to get there. If you reach it, you are going to be so excited. That is like amazing that I got here. So it's stretchy yet attainable, right? It's not out of reach, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there. And when we set those stretchy but attainable goals, it's also okay for us to renegotiate when the exact thing that we want doesn't happen. So as humans, we feel like if we don't reach a goal, we failed. We've been taught that, right? If we don't reach it, we failed. Yet we're human and we will always be human. And if we're giving 100% to our stretchy but attainable goal, we get to renegotiate as it gets closer to what is stretchy but attainable and then continue to strive for it, right? So that works when we talk about wrestlers or athletes going to the NCAAs and we set the goal. Yet it's okay to renegotiate of, okay, now I get there, but I don't have to be first. And that's kind of that resilience, that mental toughness.
Yeah. So it's, it's a fine line because I talk a lot about our identity, right? And I think that's what gives us a lot of persistence and resilience is I have an identity of being at this level of success. And so the subconscious locks onto that and it keeps taking us there. Well, the problem is if I don't accomplish that goal, now I haven't met my identity and there's this disconnect or this misalignment within my entire system. And so I guess, the question is, how do I use my identity to push me to goals, but also be able to disassociate that I'm not my loss, right? Like that's something that happened to me, but that's not my identity, right? How do I kind of disassociate those two?
Gosh, that is a really great question. Well, that's about knowing, right? That's just a knowing that we can reset those and that it's not our identity. So we aren't our actions,
right?
We are our intentions. And, we are judged by our actions, yet we all make mistakes, right? So we don't get to identify with everything that happens in our life. It's our intention. It's our intention to be successful, be the champion, be kind, whatever it is. If we're continually working toward that intention because we've declared it, it gets to happen. And it's a matter of just knowing that.
Yeah, we're a goal-seeking mechanism. And so just because we haven't achieved the goal, like a heat-seeking missile is never on target. It's always adjusting towards target, right? And so by not hitting a goal, that just means we get to make another adjustment. And I guess there's no failure until you've called it that and labeled it that. Otherwise, constantly learning and making adjustments as we go, and sports and life as well, right?
For sure. So here's a good example of when it really hit home for me that I get to prepare athletes more so for the uncontrollables. We had our youngest son was going to state for wrestling, and it was maybe 6 months after our oldest son, who was an elite wrestler, had passed away. And he was going his senior year and he made it to state. He had won regionals and sectionals. He was going his senior year and he had a lot of pressure on him. And he had newspapers calling, and you're going to do this for your big brother. And this is your debut. And he was ranked second in the state. So he knew his potential to win state was huge. And what did he want to do? He wanted to win for his brother. And I was in this space of being, the mental trainer is, you've got this, you have all the pieces in line, you've done the practice, you've done the work, the mental training, you are ready. Like you get to win state this year. The piece that I missed is, and if things don't go your way, how do you bounce back during the competition? Right. So what happened is he got seated where he wrestled the first string, the top ranked wrestler in the first match. Now, the seating was a little off. It shouldn't have been that way. And he lost by, I think it was a point. It was an amazing match. Yet, because he wasn't prepared mentally, because the resilience wasn't there, he could not bounce back. And so even though he should have been, okay, great, I lost, I still can be third, right? Because you can't be second, but you can still be third. It was downhill from there. So it was painful to watch. Yet that's that piece of mental toughness. If you can let it go and move on, you can still readjust and you get to be third instead of sixth, right? But that's the preparation that we get to say, okay, that was a stretchy but attainable goal first. Like that's amazing at state. And yet, if there's an uncontrollable in between there, how do I readjust that goal and still succeed?
Absolutely. And I saw this a lot with athletes too, that they would lose a match and then, their body language would change and they'd cry and it'd be like, look, you're not only doing this for you, you're doing it for your team as well. So, get your head out of it. The most important shot in golf is obviously the next one. So I think they would lose sight on that and they would carry that with them. And I know what we do as hypnotists is a lot of just shifting people's focus, right? And so you talked about this earlier. You're basically just shifting their focus from what it feels like to lose. Most people live in that focus and you're changing it to what does it feel like to win? Think of a time you won. Think of what it's going to be like to win in the future. Imagine winning now. And all you're doing with our language as hypnotists is we're just guiding that focus. And I think, you learn from that experience. I'm guessing that to prepare that ahead of time, so how all those situations can play out and where your focus is going to go, in case something doesn't go your way.
Yeah, exactly. So have that map already created. And I did. And I definitely made it a bigger focus when I work with athletes now, because it's going to happen. You're not going to win every single time, right? And so we get to prepare ourselves.
So, something came up, something popped up in my head while you were explaining that, is our motivation. And so I realized a lot of times people have motivations for performing for our ulterior motives, right? To get their parents' approval, or to feel like they belong, or to do it for the team. And I find that different motivations have different benefits, but I guess the athletes that really succeeded, where does their motivation come from?
Definitely internal. And what I find is the most successful with an athlete that is losing motivation, whether it's for someone else or themselves, is helping them get back to the joy of the sport. Why are they doing it? Right? Are we doing it for your parents? Are you doing it just because? And when it starts to be hard and not fun anymore, that's when the performance actually decreases, right? So how do we find the joy in it? And that's getting back to, why do you do this? How did it feel when you first started this sport? Because when you get back to enjoying it and the joy of it, you will start winning again. And we all know that the motivation in most of us to do anything in life is the thrill of accomplishment. It's the win that keeps us going. I've said many times in the sport of wrestling, I can't even imagine. I mean, it's the hardest sport I think ever that has ever been on this earth. And it's super hard to lose because it's all you. It's so physical. It's so mental, yet they keep going because the thrill of the win is so exhilarating.
Yeah. And so this applies to anything, we're speaking about wrestling, but you can generalize that to any sport, really.
Yeah.
And I think, there's something in our brain about the unpredictable that keeps us addicted, right? So slot mania is when you put a coin in a slot machine and you pull it in. If you won every time, it would get boring. It's the unpredictable that draws us in and hooks us. So if you went to compete as an athlete and you always won, it'd probably get boring, but it's like I don't know if I'm going to win. I have to work hard. I have to see what's going to happen. That the nerves in your stomach, that's what makes it exciting and actually what makes it addicting. And so I think that's part of the process to embrace. And then I also, was thinking, if I could go back and do it again as a wrestling coach, I would have had, because it's such a long season, it's so grueling, and we can, often get into like that rut of this is not fun anymore because it's a lot of work. I would have made it more fun, more playfulness, more laughter, and still work hard. But I look at programs like, I think Penn State does a good job of that. Their wrestling team, which is, Cale Sanderson. And I think I was a little bit on the other side where they're a little bit more serious and maybe not having as much fun. And I think playfulness and fun brings out more of our creativity, more of our spontaneity, more joy. And I think, like you mentioned, that shows up in a big way in our performance in any sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is the connectiveness, right? The team.
Yeah.
Because we all as human beings want to be connected.
Yeah. It's one of the strongest drivers for what we do. And, if you're an athlete listening to this, definitely surround yourself with successful athletes, because that's how you're going to get better. I always believe that, if we spend 33% of our time with someone not as good as us, 33% with someone on our level, and 33% with someone better, we kind of get that full spectrum of, hey, this guy's kicking my butt. I need to work on this. This guy's an even match. I kind of, I'm really mastering my skills. And then someone that's not as good, we can kind of use that as practice. And so I think that was something in wrestling that I used to espouse as well.
Interesting you say that, because that's not only wrestling. That's what high performers say about entrepreneurs, right? Yeah, it's all of life. And that's the thing, like all of this high performing, all of the way that we work with athletes, it applies to so many different things in life. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, it all applies.
Yep, absolutely. That's why we do these, on various topics, because we can see, hey, the same stuff I talked about with hypnobirthing applies in athletics as well. And so all of these principles kind of get distilled no matter what we're talking about, whether it's investor psychology or building a business, it's all kind of the same principles. So for the coaches out there, what are some things that you teach or speak on to help a coach to get the most out of their athletes?
One of the biggest things I like to speak to coaches is, what is the talk? What is coming out of your mouth? Because we know as hypnotists and hypnotherapists that the subconscious doesn't hear don't, wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't.
Right.
Now, it's interesting when we say that, because so much of this, like, how do you quantify it? How is it scientific? Yet it's so true. And here's an example why is many coaches like to say, don't put your head down. Don't get nervous. Don't run so fast. Don't, right? So it's always the don't. And then we end up saying that to ourselves. So the coaches don't realize that they are actually creating a self-fulfilling prophecy for these athletes. So one of the biggest things I talk to coaches and parents about is to pay attention and to what's coming out of your mouth. And if it's positive present tense, awesome. If it's negative, don't go there. An example is, and we all use this, right, with our pre-talk, is don't think of a pink elephant. Don't imagine what it looks like. Don't see it in your mind. Don't see the shade. Don't see how big it is. Just don't even imagine a pink elephant right now. And you say, what did you see? And they see a pink elephant. So two premises there is A, you picture everything that I say. Everything I'm saying, you're creating images in your mind. B, I said, don't think of a pink elephant. And yet you did it, right? And so that's the way as coaches, you can speak to your athletes is tell them what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do. And they really, so many of them, and I see this with both athletes and parents, when the parents are in my office, if I have a younger child, they'll look at their athlete or their son or daughter and they'll be like, I do that, don't I? And they're like, yes, you do it all the time. So that is just an awareness that makes a huge reframe, a huge mind shift that we can teach.
Back to the principle of focus, right? As I say, don't shoot with your head down. Their focus goes, like you said, they have to focus on shooting with their head down. So,
yes.
Keep your head up and in when you take a shot. There's a better way to describe, the present positive versus that negative state. And, the other thing is, and I didn't do this enough as a coach either, but praising athletes, right? Like making a point to praise them, because that's how the nervous system learns. Obviously repetition. I mean, that's kind of the key, but the more we can praise someone for success, for progress, no matter how small it is, if they had a match and they did 100 things wrong and they did one thing right, to be able to find that thing and to praise it, I think is a skill, obviously not just for sports, but for relationships, for parenting, for leading a business, everything we do in life, we can get better at praising, because that's kind of how the nervous system learns as well.
Absolutely. And, we all know as athletes and high performers, if we mess up or don't reach a goal, we're already disappointed in ourselves. We don't need anyone else to tell us how disappointed they are. Right. And that's part of that higher way of thinking of, oh yeah, they already get that part of it. Let's just tell them what they did good. So they will then, that'll reinforce that. Yeah.
So let's take a minute and talk about confidence. So I think a lot of people struggle with confidence issues. They're like, I've never been confident. I've always, not felt good enough or been anxious for competition. How do I can I really do some hypnosis and visualization and turn that around? There's no way I can just on a dime change that, right? That's what a lot of people probably think. So I guess without getting into how important confidence is, I think most people know that, but what exactly is confidence? Where does it come from? And how can people really start to feel that in every cell in their body?
Yeah. Well, we all know that confidence really results from self-talk. And when I talk self-talk, we just talked about, that inner mean guy or that inner mean girl that is constantly berating you. And if you could truly think about, okay, I've got this inner roommate inside me and it's questioning me. It's self-doubt. It's not believing in myself. If we could take that piece, that conscious piece, and put it in the chair next to us and just say, shut up for a little bit, we could then work with who we truly are meant to be. Right. But the question is how do you do that? Like you asked, and it's truly practice, just like physical practice in the gym will make you stronger and a better athlete. Just like as an entrepreneur, the more you speak, the better speaker you're going to be. And so just like that, mental training is the same thing. The more you do it, the better you become. Now you have two choices. You can stay on the same path as I'm not good enough and I'm never going to be as good as, and the non-confident path. Or we can put roadblocks in that by using the subconscious, changing our self-talk, and then create another pathway that then becomes a road, a highway, and a superhighway. And how do we do that? We pay attention to inner mean guy, inner mean girl. We literally stop the thought mid-sentence and we replace it with, I'm the best on the team, or replace it with, I am amazing, or we replace it with, I'm a leader in my field, or whatever it is. But it is about literally changing the neural pathways of not being confident to being confident by focusing on the talk that's going on in your head. Yeah. It's pretty simple, right? When you think about it, yet it feels hard, yet very simple.
Such an important piece. And it's really separating ourselves from those thoughts and being able to observe them. We all have thoughts like, hey, I can't win this. I'm not very good, right? I can't do this. And then being like, oh, wait a second, like, that's not my thought. I don't want that. Here's the thought I do want. And to put that in. And, I've spent years practicing that for myself. I still catch it all the time. That's part of the process. But the more you catch it and interrupt it, the more you do things like those visualization exercises and practice that, see yourself winning, the more that voice starts to change or starts to fade away, and you can kind of live out who you truly are. So Caryn, in your experience, how long does it take to start to see results when someone's like, all right, I'm doing these visualizations, maybe I'm seeing somebody, maybe they're guided meditations, I'm catching these thoughts. How long do you expect for them to start to change how they feel and perform?
Literally, Nicholas, immediately. It's immediately, right? So when we teach these concepts, it is immediate results. So when I work with athletes, I typically see athletes for 4 sessions. I teach them about carrying themselves like a champion and how that gives them the mental edge, thought stopping, like we spoke about. We create a mental training program. We write affirmations and goals. We do visualizations. I teach self-hypnosis. So it's a 4-session process. But literally after that first session, when they come back for the second session about a week later, the first thing I do is I ask, tell me 3 things that you've noticed difference in yourself since last time we met. And every single time, no fail, it's like, I'm more confident. I feel better. I like it better. I'm playing better. I reached this goal. It's immediate. And it's really just like we said, it's just reframing. It's thinking about things a different way. And that's even before teaching the thought stopping.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, question for me is, I guess from my own personal curiosities, do you go back and change or reframe past experiences for these athletes? Because, I just had Roy Hunter on last week and he does a lot of hypnotic regression and going back to cause. And is that something that you implement with these athletes, or are you like, let's focus forward on the next performance?
It's really about focusing forward. And my belief in it is that we don't need to bring the emotional back in with them, because if they are an athlete in my office, they're typically a high performing athlete. They already know how to, they just want to learn that edge about how to get a little bit more so that they can perform to their ability, right? Because they know consciously, most of them know consciously they're good. Yet there's that little bit in the back, that little tweak that will make them that much better. And so I do emotional stuff with other clients, but when it comes to athletes and high performers, it really is about focusing forward and moving on that new path. Like, we don't need to bring that up unless we have an injury. And then I will do where we go back to the injury, we reheal it. We ask what the message was from the injury, because there was a reason for the injury, or it was a blessing in disguise. So let's reframe it. Let's figure it out, what your body needed, why you get to be better, who's come as far as that, and then been better with the same injury, and then move on from there. So that's the only time that I would ever go back to a situation.
I love it. I totally agree with that. I think too many people go back and they want to heal these past experiences and these past lives. And the more you go back to heal that stuff, the more you're going to dig up and find. So I'm like, let's create that vision going forward. If something comes up in the meantime, we can deal with it. But I think with the primary goal of really creating our future, creating that new identity that and the new success programs in the subconscious. So I'm glad we're in alignment there. So how can people work with you with this program you were talking about?
Well, I have two programs. So I do see athletes individually, and that's the 4-session program that we're talking about. I have a website. It's my business name, which is winwithhypnosis.com. And ironically, I chose that before I even started working with athletes, which is, isn't it so interesting how the universe just aligns perfectly for us? And when we're ready, we step into it. So that's that. And then I also teach the Attitude of a Champion course, which is an online course with business coaching and mentoring. And it's a certification to be a performance mindset expert. And I coach you and teach you for 6 months exactly what I do, all the demos, step by step, all the languaging, all the scripts that I use when I work with athletes.
Awesome. Okay. So another question pop up for me. This is why I like doing these little freestyle, because I get more creative as we go. So when you're doing a session with somebody, can you talk about the importance of different properties of hypnosis? So, whether that's just direct suggestion, just to tell someone they're going to feel more confident, the, guided imagery obviously is a part of it. How important is changing kind of the modalities of the experience as well, like the brightness and the color and the location of all these things in the mind. And I guess just different, like little the principles we use in hypnosis. How do you maximize those to really get the most emotion out of that athlete for that experience?
Oh gosh, that's a really deep question, Nicholas.
This like subconsciously so often, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay. So like you said, it's about setting goals. If we don't set goals, we don't reach goals. It's about the way you talk to yourself. It's about releasing the negative emotions and creating future visualizations. I think to answer that is in the 4th session, after I teach them self-hypnosis, and we do what we call a circle of excellence, where they see themselves stepping into the zone. They bring back that peak emotional state. They have a power word. Then they see themselves in the next match or the next big competition or the next big game. So we do that, right? And then I also do where they see themselves inside their body, performing at their peak. Give me a couple words that describes it. And then outside their body, performing at their peak. Give me a couple words or a symbol. Sometimes I'll ask for a symbol or a color. So we're bringing back like all of those senses, some sounds you hear around you. And then thirdly, see yourself as a fan in the bleachers, and you see whatever their name is, Nicholas, performing at his peak. He's dominating, he's aggressive. And what are the fans saying about how he is, playing or wrestling? And give me 2 words. And then as they're giving me these words, these colors, these symbols, I am then reiterating it back to them and write them down, of course. And then in the end, we plant those as suggestions. So from now on, anytime you think, hear, or see the words, the colors, the symbol, or smell, this same feeling of confidence returns. So post-hypnotic suggestions, right? Or even sometimes I'll have them choose an animal. When we speak swimmers, right? See yourself as a dolphin. Your lane illuminates. The dolphin swims faster and stronger and smoother as the lane pushes you forward, as if there's a current. And then, as you dive into the water, bring back the picture, the image of a dolphin. So again, taking their words, their experiences, how they see it and feel it, and then giving that as a post-hypnotic suggestion. And then anytime they see, feel, think, smell, that will come back to them. So they're not even really, they're not actively trying to bring it back. It's just automatic because it's already back there.
And as an athlete, it's got to be automatic. If you got to work at it, it doesn't work, right? But that you answered that so brilliantly. And I'm going to kind of summarize, because I do everything you described. I would do most of those things just out of intuition when I was working with athletes. And so I love that. So we covered perceptual position, associated, we view it, dissociated, we view it, right? Like you're a fan. And so just having both of those perspectives, using, stepping into that circle of excellence, the color, associating a color with that, taking their words, James Tripp calls them neuro handles. And I kind of like that term, right? Because we all have different values. We all have different words we would use to describe our peak performance. and they resonate with our nervous system. So you're going to feed back to that person specifically what works for them. You're going to future pace their experience. You're going to plant those post-hypnotics in with direct suggestion as well as the guided imagery. So it's like multiple layers piling on each other. All our five senses are involved. New neural pathways are forming the more of those we engage at the same time. Boom, athlete steps out, has an amazing experience. And it sounds like they're in pretty good hands with you, huh?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to think that. I like to think it.
Any like really crazy or success stories that you like to share?
So many, actually, so many. One of my favorite ones, though, and this has happened multiple times, and it always surprises me, is when I'm working with high-level swimmers and they set their goals and their goal times, right? So in the 500 free, I go whatever, so many minutes. I don't even want to say how much because I can't remember. And so this is their goal, and they're saying it and they're visualizing it, and they're hopping out of the pool and looking up at the board and seeing that number. And literally like a week or 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks after they've set this goal and set it, they will send me an email and call me and say, I have no idea how, but I literally reached this goal. And it's fractions of a second, like 5.36. And they'll say, I have no idea how I did that, because typically when you're swimming, your head's down, you have no idea. And they ask me how it works. And I have to say, honestly, I don't know how it works. I just know it works. And we get to trust. It's about trusting, right? And trusting our body and trusting our minds. So I just love to get those because it always surprises me also.
The subconscious it's the craziest thing. It's so amazing. And it has such a precise computer in it that can manage time in ways that we can't even imagine. I know when I go to give a talk, a lot of times, especially if I've never given a talk before, I'm just like, all right, I got 90 minutes. I'll set that in my internal timer and boom, like almost to the minute I'm finishing my talks. And so as athletes can do the same thing, but we have to get the subconscious involved. We have to bypass that conscious mechanism and use all of these principles that you've been describing. It's been very enlightening for me. So I'm super glad we got to have this conversation. Is there anything else we missed that comes to mind that you wanted to cover?
I don't think so. I just wanted to mention, as you were saying that, do you ever notice how when you have to get up early to get to the airport or something and you set your alarm and you think to yourself, I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning, and you literally open your eyes at like 3:28? That's exact same principle, but we can actually use it in the waking state. That's how magical it is.
Yeah. I teach people to like set internal timers and be like, all right, timer, like remind me in 20 minutes and then forget about it. And like, boom, 20 minutes later, they're like, how did I remember that? That's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
We do that in athletics as well.
True. Yes.
Remind people how they can find you, how they can get involved in one of your programs, and also where they're going to be able to see you live.
Oh gosh. Okay. So you can find me at either winwithhypnosis.com, or if you're interested in the Attitude of a Champion program, which is the training and mentoring, that is at Caryn Bird, which is my name, carynbird.com. And it's with a C, ARYN, and then bird, like the bird that flies. So carynbird.com.
We'll put all
what was that? I'm sorry.
Put all those in the show notes as well for everybody.
Okay, perfect. So it's Win with Hypnosis or carynbird.com. And then let's see, I will be presenting on sports hypnosis and working with athletes in Orlando in about 2 weeks on February 12th and 13th at the ICBCH conference. And you're in Florida also, aren't you, Nicholas?
Not anymore. I was.
Oh, you're not.
For a bit, but yeah, I'm back in Iowa.
You're in Iowa. Ober. Okay. So you're cold. All right. So I will be in Orlando in February. I will be in March in Vegas at the Solid Gold National Guild of Hypnotists conference. And that is March 12th and 13th. And then I'll be in Vegas again in July at HypnoThoughts.
Yep, I'll be there.
And there's the Heartland Hypnosis Conference in St. Louis, and that's in April. So lots of opportunities to see me live if you're interested.
Plenty of chances to meet in person. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Vegas and attending your talk and doing my own. So I will be visualizing and mentally rehearsing my performance there as well, as I do with everything. So
good. I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. And it's been a pleasure. We'll see you in person very soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
It's easy to get stressed out and anxious in today's fast-paced and uncertain world. The real problem is the hormones of stress store in our bodies, causing chronic disease and emotional health issues. One of the most important things I do every day to reset my body and mind is a chakra clearing meditation. To access the meditation I recorded with my mentor, Sandra Grace, visit spohntrained.com/chakra clearing. In just 25 minutes, you'll learn how to use your focus to move energy through your body and set yourself up for more presence, gratitude, and mental clarity. That's spohntrained.com/chakra clearing to access the meditation for free.
Thanks for listening to the Spohn Trained Personal Development Podcast with Nicholas Spohn. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And for more information, visit spohntrained.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon.
If you enjoyed this podcast, one of the best ways you can give back is simply by leaving a review in iTunes. If you've had a 5-star experience, let the world know. Reviews do something to the algorithm that pushes it out to more people. It's one of the few ways you can help me make a bigger impact and help people reclaim their mental and emotional power.